In a Colorado mining town with a never-say-die attitude, in a place where the air is so thin that breathing itself is exercise, where snow falls year-round, where night reluctantly yields to day, two sets of dreamers, cyclists and runners, have come to race a distance that may pound their dreams into nightmares. They have come to compete in the ultimate race, the race across the sky. In a Colorado mining town with a never-say-die attitude, in a place where the air is so thin that breathing itself is exercise, where snow falls year-round and where night reluctantly yields to day, where rock-strewn trails cause sure-footed sheep to stumble, and where mining ghost towns are tumble-down tombstones to dead dreams, in this place, two sets of dreamers have come to test their will. First, mountain bikers, among them a professional photographer, a man who races burros but doesn't own a car, and a geologist who will experience the rocks of Colorado firsthand. Then, a week later, the ultra runners, including a Tarahumara Indian running for his people and culture, a former drug addict running for his life, a 50-year-old banker who's done this 10 times before, and a 6-time ultra runner of the year. Together with nearly 400 others, they have come to Leadville, Colorado to race a distance that may pound their dreams into nightmares. 100 miles at an average elevation of 10,000 feet. They have come to compete in the ultimate race, the race across the sky. Hello everyone, I'm Greg Lewis. Just outside Leadville, a town better known today for an ultramarathon, a 100-mile running race that defies comprehension. The Leadville Trail 100. Now, just imagine running 100 miles at 10,000 feet. That would be like running 100 miles at sea level with a sock in your mouth. It seems even incomprehensible just to ride a bicycle at this altitude. But this year, for the first time, on terrain just like this, not only are they riding bicycles in Leadville, they're racing them. Mountain bikes for 100 miles. As if miles and altitude aren't enough, race day dawns dreary and dank. A drizzle falls on the race personnel as they prepare for this first annual Leadville 100-mile mountain bike race. While riders and locals are excited, Mother Nature is grumpy, a dour presence hanging above this unusually long course. Still, it fits the character of these athletes, for whom worse is better. The highest and longest race of its kind is underway. 142 total entrants, only 18 are women. No one knows what exactly to expect in this inaugural race, except they all expect to discover their personal limits and the limits of their state-of-the-art bicycles, which may cost as much as $5,000, masterpieces of titanium and high tech. But tactics and tenacity may be even more valuable. Already they are splattered with rain. When they leave the pavement on the edge of town, they will be splashed with mud. And the race will really begin, off-road and uphill. The race is an out and back, from Leadville around Turquoise Lake, then a fierce climb over Sugarloaf Mountain to the fish hatchery. It's mostly gradual to Twin Lakes, then dauntingly steep and long to 12,400-foot Columbine Mine. Then another 50 miles back home. The early leaders are Leadville local Tom Sobel in the white helmet and Kyle Brucci, a machinist from San Francisco. For Sobel, the single track up Sugarloaf is too rough to ride. Third, just behind, is John Stamstead, world record holder for 24 hours off-road. On a Jeep trail, briefly, Brucci leads Sobel, but they are seemingly working together, an alliance of convenience they'll abandon when a better opportunity comes along. Sobel's used to working with a different partner. Tom Sobel is a champion burro racer, having won 95% of all races he's entered in the past 7 years. And the week before the bike race here, there was a burro race in Leadville, which Tom Sobel and Maynard, his four-legged partner, won.
The burro racers, that's one thing that really got me focused on it, because the people that were in burro racing were real competitive, and they're all very deadly serious about it. You don't see people showing up at a burro race that aren't prepared to do it. Bicycling is a whole nother thing. There's so much technology involved, but it still comes down to the motor, not the equipment. And it's nice to have the $5,000 bike, but if you don't have the legs to turn the pedals, you're not going to be able to do it.
Legs? The continuing climb up Sugarloaf takes Greg LeMond's legs. Sobel's got them, Kyle Brucci doesn't. He's dropped behind. A few miles back, the mode is hike and bike. Get off and push. There are more than 80 miles to go, many of them up. These riders are eager to sit back down. Ahead on the course is the leading woman, Lori Brandt, setting the pace among a gaggle of men. She leads Colorado's Off-Road Cycling Championship Series. Meanwhile, a new leader is speeding down Sugarloaf's backside power line. Kyle Brucci had fallen behind on the climb, but good fortune has hitched a ride for the descent. It's a time to prepare for what's ahead.
Mountain bike races aren't generally this long. I think the longest mountain bike race I've done is 50 miles. I think I can ride 100 miles pretty quick, but I'm sure there's some guys that are quicker.
But no one's quicker to the first checkpoint, the fish hatchery, mile 24. So where's Sobel? First a flat, then a blown tube have forced him to run 3 miles to the hatchery.
I think I'm going to stick to running.
Second into the fish hatchery, Will Gagan, a professional cyclist and experienced ultra-distance rider. From Cincinnati to the top of the Rockies.
I've only been up here for about 10, 11 days, and coming from Ohio, Cincinnati specifically, it's only about 700 feet above sea level, so I don't have that much experience at high altitudes.
John Stamsted's also from Cincinnati, and now in third place after the fish hatchery. 8 minutes back, lead woman Lori Brandt, in and immediately out of the fish hatchery and on the charge, 75 miles to go. When we return, the climb to Columbine, the course turnaround at 12,400 feet above sea level. At mile 30 in the first ever Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race, Kyle Brucci leads. 6 feet, 130 pounds, he's human titanium, light and powerful. 2 minutes back in second, Will Gagan. Only 30 seconds further behind, John Stamsted. Head down, legs hammering. While some are racing, others are refueling. There are 5 opportunities over the 100 miles of this course to load up on everything from bananas to bagels. This is literally eating on the run. For no matter how much was consumed the night before at the carbo loading party, there is room for more now. Mountain bike racers burn fuel like drag racers, and they're going 400 times farther. 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 43 miles into the race. The leaders are together, Brucci, Gagan, and Stamsted, who has pushed himself to bridge and then lead. By riding in a pace line, they can increase their collective speed. Now they will push each other, literally, making sure each takes a turn pulling the train. Almost 5 miles back, Lori Brandt extends her women's lead. She is a perfect partnership of body and mind.
I'm always thinking about my body and where it is in a sense of, am I going to make it? How hard am I going to make it in the end? Do I have what it takes? And being able to keep feeding my body both mentally and physically.
You have a heart monitor?
No, I don't. I don't want to see it.
Suddenly, there are two new contenders in the men's race, Chris Miller and Mike Volk, a corporate investor and a mortgage banker from Telluride, Colorado. But dollars will not claim this real estate. Form and fitness will. Leader John Stamstead.
I'd say what I like most about mountain biking is that it's rarely boring. Going up a climb is really difficult, and going down a climb, down a descent can be scary, so you're never bored.
There is little time for boredom in John Stamsted's life. When he's not training or competing, he's relaxing, infrequently, or working in Cincinnati. Though an unusual skyline for mountain biking, it's a perfect backdrop for his photojournalism career. His work is locally well known and seen on the covers of magazines. But taking pictures doesn't interfere with his focus on racing. Volk and Miller, the Telluriders, know this as they chase Stamsted to Columbine, the 50-mile mark. They will have climbed 2,800 feet in 7 miles to reach the turnaround, almost 2.5 miles above sea level. Meanwhile, Kyle Brucci has lost 10 minutes to the leaders. He had been first at Twin Lakes. And Will Gagan, once second, is another 4 minutes back and suffering. But John Stamsted is soaring, 12,400 feet above sea level, king of the mountain. He has raced 50 miles at gasping altitude in 4 hours, 8 minutes, and he will not even stop for fuel. Early in the race, Stamsted had struggled in the rain. Cold and out of sync, he had considered quitting. What irony that farther and higher are better. But can he sustain it? As he heads down, he sees two new rivals, Volk and Miller, working together at closing the gap. Volk and Miller will stop at the summit. But for how long? There are 50 miles to go. Starting the climb to Columbine is Deborah Hawkinson. Spinning comfortably and confidently, she is second among the women.
Second place with a long way to home.
Yeah.
Hawkinson is half an hour behind Lori Brandt, who's bent on increasing that margin. At the Columbine summit, Brandt rejects food and drink. She'll nourish herself with speed on the descent. Will Gagan won't make the descent. The climb was just too much. He abandons the race, even though there's more downhill than uphill on the way home. But it was the downhill that proved disastrous for our former leader, as the Telluriders are now in first. John Stamsted flatted on the roaring descent from Columbine, lost 10 minutes time, and scurries to get back into the chase. In this event, riders must repair their own flats, and it's a skill they've practiced but hope to avoid. Still, in the hands of the experienced, a tedious task becomes impressive prestidigitation, under 2 minutes from start to finish. Meanwhile, Stamsted is charging again, and by mile 68 has Mike Volk and Chris Miller in sight. Despite their efforts to stay away, they are beginning to falter. Stamsted has not only found new wind for his tires, but a second wind for himself as well. Elsewhere, less skilled and less fit riders are competing only against themselves and the terrain, too tired to even look where they're going. Up Sugarloaf, Stamsted, incredibly, has more than made up for the time lost to flat tires. Miller, second, is losing ground. Volk, struggling.
That 10 minutes would sure come in handy right about now.
Perhaps Chris Miller, still fighting the climb, needs the 10 minutes more. Stamsted, first to crest Sugarloaf. Almost 10 miles back, Kyle Brucci pays the price for overestimating his abilities. Back on pavement, back in overdrive, Stamsted displays the power that set the Ididibike record in 1993. And Volk and Miller have eased back.
I can stick my foot in his front wheel and zip on by him.
Nearing 100 miles, nearing 8 hours. Stamstad claims victory in this inaugural Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race, adding the conquest of altitude to his previous conquests of distance. A remarkable time, not to mention a perfect race strategy for the last 40 miles.
Started kind of cautiously. I didn't want to give my hand and let them know I felt really good, but I moved into the lead and I felt really good, so I kept on going. And then kept looking over my shoulder the whole rest of the way.
Over John Stamstad's shoulder and 18 minutes behind, 39-year-old Telluride, Colorado mortgage banker Chris Miller arrives second place. His riding partner, banker Mike Volk, third, 18 seconds further back.
The guy who won was out there. I think any pro would have his hands full trying to stay with him. Rode a really strong race.
Elsewhere on the Leadville course, the miles are passing more slowly, the thin air becoming a heavy burden. And yet, while all this pedaling and panting produce pain, it also produces pride. They have 12 hours to finish the Leadville 100. For some, that's a victory.
Make some noise for the First Lady finisher, Lori Brandt.
A different kind of triumph for Lori Brandt. Ranked 8th in the Norba National Circuit after less than 4 seasons of racing, Brandt is 19th overall and the first woman.
It's a personal achievement for me just to have done it. I didn't know if I would, get so tired that I would feel I had to drop out or if that was manageable. 100 miles is really hard, though, to race at, and I felt like I was racing the whole time.
So Lori Brandt and John Stamstad are the first ever champions of the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race, an achievement that sets the mark for all future attempts on this demanding course. But there is a new and different wave of ultra athletes arriving in Leadville to test their strength, skill, and endurance against a record time that has stood for 4 years. When the race across the sky returns, I'll be joined by 2-time Ironman champion Scott Tinley to witness one of the most incredible demonstrations of raw courage in sports today, the Leadville Trail 100 Run. Hello everyone, I'm Greg Lewis along with 2-time Ironman triathlon champion Scott Tinley just outside of Leadville, Colorado. Behind us a Rocky Mountain vista that seems to span 100 miles. And Scott, in fact, it's 100 miles that the athletes in this race are going to run, and to me that is incomprehensible.
Well, Greg, I've had the chance to compete against some of the world's best endurance athletes, yet these people are something special. They moved me by competing virtually on the edge of human endurance. In the early days of triathlons, people thought I was nuts for racing 8 to 9 hours, yet these people are pushing the edge of human endurance in an entirely new direction by running up to 30 hours.
18 hours potentially for a winner, mostly up and down hills, 13,000 vertical feet of climbing and descending, through the dark, over rigorous terrain, temperatures down to the freezing mark. Why?
I don't think there is any one answer. For each athlete that toes the starting line, there's a separate, distinct, deeply personal reason for competing. But they will share a common denominator. Each athlete will experience incredible highs, devastating lows, and at some point, they're all going to suffer. But it's those athletes with the most emotional courage and mental strength that will ultimately achieve their personal goals.
With a burst of exuberance, 316 runners commence a 100-mile race across the sky. It is 4 a.m. and cold. Unending miles of unknown experiences lie ahead. Only the route itself is certain.
The Leadville Trail 100 starts at an altitude of almost 2 miles above sea level. Runners must pass through 5 aid stations on their way to Winfield, the halfway point of 50 miles. The course peaks at 2 locations, Sugarloaf at 11,200 feet and Hope Pass at a barely breathable 12,600 feet.
And how many hours? For some, as many as 30. For the winner, perhaps less than 18. Whatever, it is too many for comprehension. Though just right for the 7 Tarahumara Indians from Chihuahua, Mexico. A member of their tribe, 53 years old, won Leadville in '93 in sandals. It seems like lunacy, running 100 miles, 2 miles above sea level. But if you are John Sandoval, a veteran endurance athlete and the early leader after the May Queen station, it is ecstasy. Sandoval wants a new men's record, under 18 hours. And so does Ann Trayson, want a new men's record. She already holds the Leadville women's record.
At this point, the leaders have run half a marathon already. They have to start replenishing fuel now. The competitors choose their own food, each based on personal experience. The Tarahumaras here have chosen a unique burrito-like item. Greg, I could only guess what's in that.
Barb Dolan's never run 100 miles. She's won at 50 and set records for high-altitude cycling. But what will Leadville do to her exercise-induced asthma? Dawn begins to fill the sky behind Johnny Sandoval. The trail fills his spirit.
I like the mountains, so I'm always looking. And when I'm on the trail, sometimes when I run on the road, I have more trouble. Then everything, I start feeling pain or I start feeling different things. But when I'm in the trail, it's like, hey, this is what I like to do,
Still in first place, he's doing it well, so far. And far behind, the field begins to divide and stretch. But closer to Sandoval, the race is tightening and accelerating. Tarahumara Martimano Cervantes passes Ann Trayson. Johnny Sandoval speeds up to stay away. Then, Sandoval's churning down Sugarloaf's gravel trail. Juan Herrera strides past Trayson too. By the time the leader Johnny Sandoval has come off Sugarloaf, he's faced darkness, cold, climbing, descending, rocky trails, and experienced a gorgeous Colorado sunrise. Now all Johnny Sandoval has to face is another 79 miles. And as Scott Tinley knows, long distance requires hard work.
Banks are the lucky winners of.
Before you decide to do a 100-mile foot race through the Rocky Mountains, first you need to get out of this chair. Now, sure, it helps to have courage and commitment and dedication, but what you really need is a training plan. There are really two key elements to an ultra-distance training program. The first is that once or twice a week, you need to go out and run long. Now, for the average person, that's anywhere from 2 to 5 hours. The other is it's very advantageous to train in an outdoor environment such as this. Those who live in an alpine setting have a tremendous advantage over those who are stuck in a more municipal environment.
Johnny Sandoval at the first medical check, mile 23.5 and still in the lead, barely. Cervantes and Herrera arrive only 3 minutes later.
Ann Trayson is less than a minute behind and running very smoothly, but the stressful look on her face seems to me to be showing concern about something.
I mean, if you start thinking about your competition or a person and you don't have respect for this course or the altitude, you're going to eat it big time. You're going to be toast.
Trayson arrives at the fish hatchery, annoyed. There's been miscommunication with her support crew.
Did anyone find out what happened to Carl?
Yeah, I'll let you in.
I can't believe it. Where the hell is he?
1 marathon down, 3 marathons to go. The original distance runner, Phidippides, may have worn similar sandals and flowing skirts on his fateful and fatal run to announce the Greek victory at Marathon. But this is Leadville, almost 4 marathons long. The pace setter here is Johnny Sandoval. The pace is unusually fast, but not too fast for Ann Trayson, who has kept the men in sight. She is 4th. Wearing their native breechcloths, the Tarahumara Indians are 2nd and 3rd. In front of them, and beginning to sputter, Sandoval is still 1st. Can he pull himself together? Scott Tinley believes the flats are the chance.
Personally, I like the flats. It gives me a chance to adjust my pace, check my time, and then maybe just have a look around at this beautiful vistas. I think most of the athletes will agree. The flats is a chance to refocus, prepare yourself for the next uphill or downhill.
¿Cómo está?
A moment later, Herrera in front and Cervantes are the new race leaders. Behind them, Sandoval walks into Half Moon Aid Station. With 70 miles to go, he is suffering the soreness of too much early speed. And there's a new challenge for Ann Trayson. Mark Tarr, 32 and from Montana, has moved past her into third. Further back, more Tarahumara, a sort of second wave should the leader's endurance falter. And as every endurance athlete knows, eating and drinking during the event is as crucial to success as training.
Even the most highly trained athletes can only store enough glycogen for between 4 and 4.5 hours of competition. So to finish this race, let alone do well, you gotta eat. Now, what do you eat during a 100-mile foot race? Well, obviously it should be something that agrees with you, that you've experimented with in training, but it should also be something that's low in fat, high in carbohydrate content to replace glycogen, like this energy bar, pretzels, bread, and of course lots and lots of fluids.
Nearing Twin Lakes and mile 39, Ann Trayson is redefining pace. She has dropped Mark Tarr and is closing on Herrera and Cervantes. For the Tarahumara, more is at risk than their lead. In their culture, women do not challenge men. This is not a mere race. It is hundreds of years of tradition against 100 pounds of determination over 100 miles.
For many of the competitors, the opportunity to run side by side is welcome. But the elite runners generally choose to run alone with the course and their thoughts. The Tarahumarans are an exception. It appears to me that camaraderie is a part of their inner strength, and no serious competitor ever likes to be passed. Right now, Ann Trayson has no interest in running alongside the Tarahumaras, and though she is running her own pace, I think she will clearly be more comfortable running in the lead.
Ann Trayson has covered nearly 40 miles in 5 hours and 45 minutes. The record men's time is only 9 minutes quicker.
Okay.
You look awesome.
Got some goo for you?
Yeah, me too.
22.
Twin Lakes, 37 miles into the race. Never before has a woman led the field at this point in the 11 years of the Leadville Trail 100. So, Scott Tinley, can Ann Trayson take it all?
Well, at 37 miles, it's hard to make predictions because in the next 63 miles, a lot can happen. What I find interesting is that Ann Trayson and the Tarahumaras come from cultures that are worlds apart, yet today here in the Rocky Mountains, they compete side to side without societal pretensions. May the best person win.
How are you feeling?
¿Cómo se siente? Bien? Okay. Ask him if he likes eating against women.
Okay. You're okay. You're 141 and a half.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a bunch of men. It'd be great if there'd be some interest in bringing in some women. Say there's some great women in Europe. I'd love to see some women brought in here from some real good trail runners. That would be motivating. But let those men worry about the Tarahumaras.
In my conversations with Ann Trayson, she has emphasized to me that she's not here to beat anyone, man or woman. She is here to do the best she can. Ann's very familiar with this course. She's raced her several times before, and it is this course that she is racing against and her own personal goals that she is racing for.
While Trayson leaves Twin Lakes, the third fastest woman, Barb Dolan, has arrived at Half Moon. 9 rugged miles back on the trail, no asthma problems yet.
Está bien. No han tomado, pues sigue tomando, ¿ok? Es muy importante que toman. Importantísimo que toman.
Meanwhile, Juan Herrera fuels up for the ascent to the summit of Hope Pass, a test he's spent a lifetime awaiting.
Pues yo ya desde 10 años empecé.
I started running when I was 10 years old. From the time I began, I wanted to be a great runner.
Mark Tarr now at Twin Lakes, eager for the chase. And Ann Trayson, eager for the men to try. Trayson is a woman for whom up is not a direction, but a passionate goal in all aspects of life. In college, she was a biochemistry honor student, now preparing for a career in physical therapy. Her husband, Carl Anderson, is the tax director at a California savings and loan, and it helps he's good with numbers. Ann Trayson holds world records for 12 hours, 100 miles, 50 miles, and more. She is 6-time women's winner of the Western States 100, 2-time Leadville women's champion, 6 times Ultra Runner of the Year. She is always climbing to the next summit, always aiming for the distant horizon.
It's hard to try to get you, that's all. Yeah? Nice view, huh?
Ann Trayson envisions an historic conquest in Leadville. Next, Hope Pass, impossibly high. Like a calm before the storm, the approach to 12,600-foot Hope Pass is gradual. It is a time for Ann Trayson to listen in on her body and to wind up her mind for an ascent of 3,400 feet. As all endurance athletes know, your mental attitude is just as important as your physical conditioning. 3-time top 10 Ironman triathlon finisher Kurt Madden explains.
You kind of get into that zone that athletes talk about. When you're in this zone, your perception of pain and discomfort isn't quite as high as it might be as if you were just out and training on your own. So a lot of things tend to be put back, that they're not a real priority for you right now.
The priority for Martimano Cervantes, in second, is to catch Ann Trayson. A goal shared by his friend Juan Herrera, now third, mere minutes back. Although it may not seem like it, equipment is crucially important in ultra-distance running. Clothes that breathe, shorts that don't chafe, and a good pair of shoes all contribute to a winning performance. The Tarahumaras actually handmade their sandals prior to the race, scouring the Leadville dump for rubber tires to construct their soles. Some 60 years ago, rubber soles were first incorporated into the footwear of another sport, mountain climbing, after 6 Italian climbers died because their leather-soled hiking boots failed them in the Alps. This prompted mountaineering guide Vitali Brahmani to pioneer the Vibram rubber sole, providing better traction, durability, and protection against the elements. Vibram set a new standard for outdoor footwear worldwide. That heritage has migrated from the Alps to the Rockies, where Vibram and race sponsor the Rockport Company are developing a high-performance rubber-soled shoe to tackle the toughest 100 miles in sport. But it's Hope Pass that Ann Trayson and Juan Herrera must tackle now. Tundra, almost 1,000 feet above treeline, where oxygen seems as thin as the vegetation.
Greg, if a race course can have a portion that is its heart and soul, for this race it's Hope Pass. At 12,000 feet above sea level, it is this portion of the race that defines a competitor's true character. It's almost impossible to run at this altitude. This is where the capacity and depth of commitment enable those individuals to simply will themselves over the top.
Yeah, it looks great. Those guys behind me, man, I don't know how they do it.
Oh, you're great. Keep it up.
Trayson, clearly impressed by her rival. Herrera, meanwhile, rises to the top as if floating on the wings of his cape.
Doing good.
And now, women's runner-up Barb Dolan leaves Twin Lakes, nearly 2 hours behind Ann Trayson. The hell of height is haunting Kurt Madden as well. No swimming or cycling in Leadville, but this race takes all a great triathlete can give.
Here's a famous trap.
After 2,400 feet of descending from Hope Pass, Ann Trayson, well in front, is striding out on the road to Winfield. The 50-mile turnaround. Word of her incredible pace has spread throughout the race, but can she sustain it? Early race leader Johnny Sandoval has fallen a half hour behind. Is Ann Trayson too fast, too soon? She has covered the first 50 miles in 8 hours, 9 minutes. The record men's time is only 3 minutes faster. Trayson thinks the pace is just right.
That's good. How you doing?
I'm doing real good, I think.
Second place, Juan Herrera, is 4 minutes slower. Hardly too much to make up. His incentive, the honor of the Tarahumara. Ann Trayson's incentive, an historic achievement for women. As Herrera completes his first 50 miles and Trayson begins the return 50, they pass. If she can stay ahead, she'll never see him again. If not, the flopping of sandals and the flowing of robes will torment her well beyond distant Leadville. 50 miles down, 50 miles to go. Welcome back to the Race Across the Sky, where we are witnessing one of the most incredible performances in ultra running history. Scott?
Ann Trayson is approaching the summit of Hope Pass for the second time, still maintaining her incredible record-setting pace. On one hand, it has to be comforting that it is almost behind her, but she has to be assessing her physical condition and fielding rapid-fire mental pieces of information. Have I eaten enough? Am I pushing too hard? Will my legs go where my mind still wants to take me? Heart rate, blisters, cramps. As Ann Trayson summits Hope Pass, she has to be taking physical inventory. Greg, I think she's a horse smelling the barn.
Others are smelling aches and pains. Oklahoma banker Harry Dupree is more than 3 hours behind Ann Trayson. He's 56 years old. He's raced Leadville 10 times, never hoping to win, except against himself.
I never thought of doing these that many times, but I came the first year and I liked it, and I came back and I just keep coming back, so it isn't going to shatter the world or anything like that, but personally it'll be an accomplishment that I'll enjoy.
Nearing the 12,600-foot summit of Hope Pass, Juan Herrera enjoys the friendship of outgoing runners as he pursues Ann Trayson on the return. He's 10 minutes behind, but there is plenty of time to catch up. For this Tarahumara Indian, time is something that moves slowly. Their culture has evolved over thousands of years, and some 400 years ago, they migrated into the Copper Canyon of Chihuahua, Mexico to escape enslavement in Spanish silver mines. They are a sociable, tranquil, frugal people whose culture evolves around corn and running after and kicking a wooden ball. Two-man teams in races that may last for days. Those who run best are revered and rewarded. But everyone runs, not as sprinters or marathoners, but as runners in a race that, figuratively speaking, has no finish line. The Tarahumara run through life. And for their premier runners, that road includes a stop in the Colorado Rockies. In his traditional handmade sandals and airy skirts, Juan, age 25, carries the pride of his people back toward Leadville. Ann Trayson is running well, accompanied by her husband, Carl Anderson. On the return 50 miles, all racers can be joined by a pace setter, whose job is to carry water, help find the way in the dark, and unofficially, to urge those whose spirit is failing to push on. As other competitors have discovered, it takes more than fitness to survive, let alone prevail, in the race across the sky. As second-place women's runner Barb Dolan explains, in Leadville, even what looks easy is hard.
They were better going uphill. They didn't even hurt. I love going uphill. I hate downhills.
When I run downhill, I like to stay light on my feet, keep my eyes open. When the runners begin to encounter some of the many downhill sections, things like agility and coordination become a key factor. Those runners with a sense of balance can make up some time. Now, later, when they begin to tire and their form deteriorates, the chance of injury increases from stepping in a hole or tripping on a rock.
And rocks, literally and figuratively, are everywhere. Ann Trayson leaving Twin Lakes, slowly, on a record pace with 40 miles to go.
Doing great, Ann. Just awesome.
But Juan is loping again. 20 minutes behind, he must gain 30 seconds every remaining mile to beat her.
As we know, not everyone comes to Leadville for the glory of winning. For 42-year-old Ian Phillips, who came here from San Diego, the reason was much more personal.
Before I started doing ultramarathons, my life was pretty much, I was very heavily into drugs, especially cocaine. What eventually happened was this particular race, the Trail 100, became my goal for quitting cocaine. It was either I was going to be dead or this was really, the circumstances came together and this became my way out, and it's been my way out.
Some run for glory, others run for life. Juan Herrera at Twin Lakes Medical Check.
Drink. Drink.
¿Quieres algo? Sí, agua.
Keep drinking. The arrows are backwards, yeah.
Still extending her lead, Ann Trayson seems fueled by an unending supply of true grit. In 11 years, no one has ever run the Leadville Trail 100 faster to this point, woman or man. Welcome back to the aches and pains of the Leadville Trail 100, a 100-mile race largely conceived of by a local out-of-work miner named Ken Klauber, here at the summit of Hope Pass. Klauber's finished all 11 races and excelled at a more difficult climb, up the steps of Colorado government, where he's a state legislator.
Be guys like you and I are going to be roadkill on that information highway. I'm not that proud of it either, but this is something that we've got to do.
Can-do is the pervasive spirit of this extraordinary race, where the miles separate people and, at the same time, bring them together. In his handmade sandals, Juan rests at Half Moon. He has not been able to close on Ann Trayson, and time is slipping away. Herrera is further from his village than he's ever been, his duty greater than ever before. As a man and an athlete, he will define himself over the next 30 miles.
Ann's lead is now 22 minutes over Juan. At times today, Ann has used her ability to perform well at a variety of distances. In fact, Ann holds respectable times for every distance from the 5K to the marathon. What I mean, Greg, is Ann can comfortably alter the pace. She isn't just a diesel motor.
For Ian Phillips, a different pace, a different victory. The summit of Hope Pass reaffirms again his triumph over cocaine. Hope, under his feet, in his soul.
Good.
Mile 67.5. Trayson is incredible. 10 minutes quicker than the Leadville record pace set in 1990 by Californian Jim O'Brien. But she is beginning to feel queasy. Herrera has quickened his pursuit, but is suffering his own problems.
Juan's pacer has told people along the course that Juan's feet have begun to bother him on the paved sections of the course. And there's a lot of asphalt left.
A different set of problems for Ann Trayson. The ascent up the power line of Sugarloaf. The miles and altitude are finally taking their toll. In dramatic contrast, Juan Herrera, running even faster than his pacer, who has run 50 fewer miles, is gaining rapidly.
Okay.
Others are feeling the pounding of this grueling course.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah.
She feels great. Say you feel great.
Oh yeah, she said to say that I feel great. No, I feel pretty good.
But Juan Herrera is not feeling good at all. Down on Sugarloaf with an equipment problem.
Greg, Juan's sandal strap has broken. He's repairing it now, but losing valuable time. Even though he's getting a rest break, I have to believe the stress of having to repair his sandal outweighs the benefits of this forced break.
Some are getting the ultimate forced break as they're eliminated from the race by missing cutoff time.
We came here to play. We played. That's right. Didn't make it, but we played,
After 15 hours of racing, overcoming broken sandals and debilitating altitude, Juan Herrera finally has Ann Trayson in his sights. With barely a glance, he blows by Trayson, who seems unable to respond.
I've never been able to push myself very hard here at the end. I've always exploded going up Sugarloaf, and it's been real tough coming in.
Trayson was the leader for over 40 miles, but now, with 12 miles to go, Herrera seems capable of a new Leadville record. As darkness falls, it becomes even more clear that Leadville reaffirms the parable of the tortoise and the hare. Johnny Sandoval had led for the first 24 miles. Now he's 5 hours behind the leaders.
He's just gonna go. Yeah, he'll keep going. He won't quit.
In this 100-mile race, just finishing is remarkable. and really what it's all about. No prize money, just a medal and a silver belt buckle. And for Juan Herrera, the fastest run ever. Juan Herrera, 100 miles at an average altitude of more than 10,000 feet, over rocks and stumps, wearing sandals and his native Tarahumara clothing. 100 miles in 17 hours, 30 minutes. 25 minutes better than the record that had stood for 4 years. Meanwhile, Ann Trayson, her dream consumed by darkness and distance, struggles to find the way home. She is the greatest woman ultra-runner ever, but for Ann Trayson, is that enough? Perhaps it should be. Her closest woman rival, Barb Dolan, is more than 5 hours behind.
Running and walking fast.
Back in Leadville on the highest main street in America, 10,152 feet above sea level, seemingly most of the town is gathered for an historic moment. Ann Trayson is about to arrive, some 36 minutes behind new record holder Juan Herrera, but 2.5 hours ahead of her old women's record, which she herself had set in 1990, and 90 minutes before the third place man.
You feel like you've done something special?
I just never thought I'd run a time like that. I mean, I know I didn't win, I know I disappointed some people, but...
No, not at all, not at all. People are very proud of you.
I never...
Is it just a little bit bittersweet having lost the lead with only 15 miles to go?
As Carl says, sometimes it takes a woman to bring out the best in a man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very proud of you.
Ann Trayson. In the 12 years since the Leadville Trail 100 began, of the thousands who have attempted this run across the sky, only 4 men have run faster. But this race is hardly over. There are more Tarahumara on the trail, pushing their own limits, and others hoping to find an important piece of themselves in all the miles. Third to cross the finish line, Martimano Cervantes. He had led 16 hours before. Johnny Sandoval, still another 5 hours back. Through the night they arrived, some crossing in symbolic displays of brotherhood, some with giddy leaps of achievement. With the second dawn, others would continue their labor against Leadville's miles and altitude, walking and wondering.
You never know about this course. It's not a passive course, it's always just trying to do you in.
Which makes it so meaningful when you do go the distance. The awful, frightful, yet delicious distance.
And Greg, from my perspective, their accomplishment is no less than what Juan Herrera and Ann Trayson have achieved.
This is going to be the high point, crossing the line. Crossing the line under the 30 hours.
Actually, Ian Phillips crossed the most important line when he dedicated himself to running this race as an alternative to cocaine addiction. Some find themselves in Leadville, some find old friends. All are bonded by miles and determination.
You did good. You did. I waited here on you.
316 runners started this race, only 156 finished. Next year, they'll challenge the miles and altitude again. For Scott Tinley, I'm Greg Lewis. Goodbye from Leadville. The proceeding has been a production of Freewheelin' Films, Aspen, Colorado.